All right, FranCamp Live, guys. We got Dan, Ty, Michelle should be joining us, and we're going to have a good 30-minute conversation here today.
Thanks for having us, Charles.
Yeah, no. So our friend Michelle is, hey, Michelle, we can't see you, but we know you're here.
I don't know what's wrong. I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
You don't want to see me anyway.
We were last together in Miami, having some nice drinks, intense mastermind. We're all preparing for Dallas as we get ready to go. Our friends from Brushmasters and everyone here, definitely let's light up the chat here a little. But so Miami, we were focusing on budgeting and planning. We're getting ready for Dallas. I think from a FranCamp perspective, couple of takeaways, at least that I've seen, that Nick has seen, which is the stars of FranCamp are the brands, the founders, the leadership team. And so the focus really going to be, how do we get from stall to acceleration? How do we find leverage in franchise sales? And really collaborating on a process. So I'm going to throw it out to you guys because I'm babbling here a little. Ty, what's some takeaways as we get ready for FranCamp Dallas? What are you thinking about?
I'm just thinking about building on what we've been learning over the last sessions. Starting with Chicago more than a year ago, and then the second Chicago, and then Miami is just continue to build on those lessons, build on those relationships, and just kind of coming ready to get connected and collaborate with everybody there. I'm just super excited about being with this group of awesome franchise professionals again.
And to me, the key has always been, if every camp we add just another tool or another asset to our arsenal as we're out there, all the different firepower we need, from operations through recruitment through sales, and so the goal, and I think it's happening, is each camp just keep elevating the assets of each brand. Dan, by the way, for everyone watching, Dan is in a closet. So the Garage Floor Company does podcasts in a closet, not in a garage.
Dan, get it right. It's a coat closet.
All right, the coat closet.
with 2 coats or 3 coats, whatever.
Which I guess it'll be, the next will be the coat company. I guess you guys are about to launch. Dan, you guys have been great at FranCamps. As we go into Dallas, what's your thought process? What are some goals? Like, hey, I want to take this away from the next conference, and really elevate.
Yeah. So I think the most important thing is I probably should put on my thinking cap. So I got to come prepared. So, like Ty said, we're starting, really building on those building blocks that we've learned from the other camps. And we've been to all of them so far, and really just taking, the biggest thing for us is bringing in the founders stronger and better than we ever had. We don't want to go back to the day where Charles said that, my website sucked and stuff like that. So we don't want to go backwards. We want to improve upon it. So the biggest thing for us is really just taking everything that we're learning and really implement it, because a lot of people, they say they're going to do things. I think they learn a lot of things. And the biggest thing is where they get stalled is they just they stop and they don't really implement what they've learned. And I think a lot of people try and take too much on at a time. And what you guys are doing is really just slowing everything down to build those blocks so we can implement a little by little to keep growing. And I think that's our biggest takeaway is we want to just learn the next steps and then build upon what we've already learned and what we've done and just make it better.
Michelle, it's different stages of the journey, right? Like Dan and his team, they're really just building their assets and really approaching the marketplace. Ty has gone through, in many ways, a re-strategy on how he approaches the market and unlocking Ty. Michelle, you guys have obtained substantial growth. The brand is around a long time. What are your, how do you approach FranCamp? What's the value? But beyond FranCamp, what are you thinking about for pigtails and crew cuts? What's your focus on?
So this is going to be my second FranCamp I attended.
Miami. And so this is our second. We were like, immediately we signed up, and we've actually signed up for the rest of the year too. The great thing about FranCamp is what we've learned. I mean, we've been in business for 20 years. And the great thing that we've learned is not only there are so many emerging brands, it's so collaborative. You're at the roundtable discussions. It's so collaborative. You're talking, you're networking, you're really intimate with the people around you. It's not like, no offense, I mean, IFA is going on this week, and you're just someone small, and it doesn't, your opinion doesn't really matter at these discussions and these tables. It's not like that at FranCamp. It is amazing, the feedback, and just being, in the business for 20 years. This is our 20th anniversary. I learned so much last FranCamp just listening to emerging brands and what they're doing, and help me, go back to where, hey, if I'm trying to do lead generations, and I'm trying to create my budgets, and I'm trying to do my marketing strategies and all of that, sometimes you have to step back and think about where we started and what we do, and just, again, collaborating with everybody at all levels of tenure was amazing to me. And I was able to give feedback, but I took a lot away as well, just from these smart, amazing people. So I'm really looking forward to Dallas.
Yeah, it was funny. Because I think I'm doing things for other people, and I end up, it just benefits me. I had so many takeaways from our last FranCamp, and this morning I was speaking with Laura Coe, who founded Snapology. She exited, and we were talking about a mastermind we did, probably a decade ago. And when I think about the founders and team members that were there, many of those companies exited already. And so it's, even for myself in our business, it's always interesting because, like Dan said, you do get overwhelmed, and then you could get to the point of not doing anything, as opposed to that continuous improvement. So, there's definitely a lot of value. So beyond the value of FranCamp, forgetting that a minute, let's talk about topics, however you guys want to go on it, but topics would be stalled to acceleration, leverage, selling franchises. What are some thoughts out there, if you guys have anything to share? Ty, you're tackling the world of YouTube and video, and I'm going to be a subscriber to Ty's t-shirt company and whatever else, which I do love that t-shirt you're wearing. But did you ever have the feeling like you were stalled at a certain point?
I don't know if I've had the feeling. Well, no, definitely early on when I first got started, and I'm sure Dan and I've had this conversation before. Like, when I first got started, I felt really stalled. I think that was a lot because it just didn't know what I was supposed to be doing. There's so much. You put yourself out there for franchising, and there's so many different vendors that start coming after you, and they all make all kinds of promises, and you're feeling stalled, and you're not knowing what you're supposed to do next. And so I've definitely felt that before. And I think that, for me, what honestly got me over that, and I give credit to everything that, that the people behind FranCamp, you and Nick and everybody, was really about getting out there and telling my story. And it was imperfect at first. I didn't know what part of my story I should tell. I still don't know. I just try to tell it more. But getting out there and telling the story of the brand and of myself and my family and why we're doing it, that's what, when we broke loose of feeling stalled, is when we stop trying to be like some big brand, stop looking at a neighborly website for inspiration, and started thinking about how do we just tell our story better. That was like a game changer for us in kind of breaking from that, stalled. I don't know if that's the question you asked.
No, it is, and
answered.
And that's the thing that I feel like with any business, and especially with new franchisors, I think if you follow the model or the pathway of the larger brands, where we have to give them credit, it's not going to be fertile, right? There's just a different pathway, forward, and I think you're unlocking a lot of it, or at least on that journey, Ty, as you're doing it, which gets to, it's really founders rolling up their sleeves, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there'll
Michelle-
be a time to come back and do it that way. One day but maybe you're like,
Yeah.
but it's interesting being on this call with Michelle and saying, 20 years from now, you need to be listening to, you need to come back and listen to new ideas from emerging brands, because if you want to stay relevant,
Mhm.
you kind of have to keep that emerging spirit.
Yeah. I mean, go.
No, Michelle, I was going to ask you, like for you guys, because I mean, you have a dynamic group, Michelle. I mean, you have a fun, you guys have a great culture, but like what does it mean like for you guys in terms of rolling up your sleeves and really, just building the organization that you guys have been building?
Yeah, I don't like to say stalling but I do think there are growing pains that go along with it. We're shy of 100 units, so we have to start thinking about the next level. And is it, adding people to our system, not just franchisees, but also our core corporate group, without breaking the bank. And it's about, how to stay innovative and how to get to that next level so that we can support the next 25, 50, 100 units. And
You
so,
see brands like,
yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
no, we had a connection issue, Michelle, but
No.
I was going to say, as you look at brands like Thai and other,
Mhm.
brand on the emerging end in FranCamp, and there's brands from emerging through, acquisition. Like, how do you look at their journey and the task ahead for them?
I mean, certainly it's exciting for them to think about, and you forget, when it all evolves and revolves back. You think about what you could have done better. You think about how you can make things better. You think about how you can support your franchisees better, how you can support and create your culture, go by your core values, remember your core values, work with you and Nick and make sure everything is in line, but it's certainly, you're always having to stay on top of it. And that's the challenge, because you want to be better every day. But sometimes you just have to stop and accept the fact that, hey, you're going to go through these challenges, you're going to go through these growing pains, but learn from mistakes, learn from everything else. So I just take it all in and do a better job the next time.
Michelle, from a culture standpoint, like how do you guys look at culture influencing or guardrailing your franchisees as you're onboarding them, their validation, what you're doing in sales?
It's super important. I mean, we're child services. I mean, that's our space is children. And so making sure that people are part of our core values is important, not just from the franchise headquarters level, but from our franchisees to their employees to our customers. I mean, it's really important to make sure it resonates with everybody. And so that's a lot of what we talk about at training, and remind people why they get into franchising, remind them why they want to be entrepreneurs, remind them of, it's not always rainbows and unicorns. There's going to be hard days where you have to talk about budgeting, you have to let people go, and you have to hire people and everything like that. But it's certainly the culture of getting the right people is important. And I think that's with any business.
Yeah, the reason I asked that, because if someone said to me, what is a fun brand that works with children? And I saw you and your team, and after speaking with you, like, that's the space you're in, right? And I know I'm speaking with a competent team, and it's just interesting because I think for new franchisors, especially any business, I think we overlook the small things and focus on the big things, whether it's going to a trade show or investing in this website or being on the cover of a magazine run by a broker organization. And I think then we're doing all that, but we're forgetting about, like, what are our core values, how we're communicating them, how we discuss that in the lead qualification. Everyone talks about, here's our 7-step process for lead qualification, and everyone goes through a formula, but I'm like, gee, if you really hone in on the culture, the team, why we're here and what we're good for, I think it's just, it becomes obvious how to differentiate a brand.
It's certainly important. I mean, it's important for people to know who you are, but for you to make sure that they're a right fit with your company as well.
Yeah, you guys, I mean, it's so like, I mean, maybe I was intimidated by you guys, but drawn right away to you guys, you know, in terms of competence and
Well,
and
you can hear me, you just can't see me. The woman behind the curtain. Sorry about that.
Dan, like as a newer brand, right? Because you guys, I mean, like it's a great journey. You're out there. I mean, you guys have the most positive attitude. Are there, as you go forward in the journey, are there things where you're uncovering like, yeah, I thought this was important, but it's not, and I underestimated this? Like, what are some of the things you're seeing as you keep improving?
Yeah. So sorry, my coat closet's actually starting to become active. So we'll start seeing some coats here soon. But yeah, along our entire journey, obviously we've learned a lot, and I've collaborated a lot with Ty in the beginning. And, you know, we still are that smaller group, you know, with, you know, ideas and mindsets that we could get stalled and things like that. So our biggest thing ahead of us is, you know, really just focusing in and finding out, you know, what our niche is and what's working and what's not. And it's a lot of trial and error. We've done everything, you know, we've made all the mistakes, I think, that we can. And we're just being able to transition from those mistakes into the right sector. You know, initially we didn't really understand what we were selling. And, you know, with yours and Nick's help, you know, the brand is not necessarily what we do, but the way you tell us is the focus is that brand story and who we are. And I think that's the biggest transition we've made is we're stopped selling floors, but now we're selling Dan and Jeff. And that's what the focus of us is. And that's the biggest mistake I think we've ever made. We didn't ever focus in on that. We weren't able to tell that story and really just live in and hone in on that aspect of us versus just trying to sell the brand and things like that. And I think another mistake is obviously we think about selling versus, you know, focusing in on making things better. Once they get better, they sell themselves. And I think that's the biggest thing too, that we made a big clerical error on is we just figured, hey, we can sell this. We have a product. Let's go out there and start selling it. And we didn't realize, you know, we don't have anything. And that's, you know, where we're trying to still educate ourselves on and learn at FranCamp every step of the way.
I'm going to tee this one. Ty, when you're talking to candidates, what are you selling?
Well, I've stopped selling. I don't sell anything.
By the way, I love Ty's LinkedIn post this week. Yeah.
I did too, Ty. Yeah, that was great.
Well, you know,
it.
Here's the thing. Like, I hate selling. I actually made another post today about kind of my experience. I hate selling, and I also hate. I get the reason why we call it awarding, and I appreciate it.
No, but when
also,
I see your post, I want to throw up when I see awarding.
Right? Like, it's kind of like, but you know, we're trying to build something, and so one of the things, this goes back to kind of the encouragement on telling your story. At first, telling your story makes sense because it's like, you know, if you have a good story, and obviously all of us that are on these calls and everybody that's at FranCamp does, because they've built something really amazing and now they're taking out in the world and they're franchising it. What an amazing story. Everybody should share it. But there's this other component that comes in when you're telling your story, which is communicating the type of business that you are. You're going back to those values and allowing people to self-select and your brand. And so I don't have to sell anything. I describe our business. I talk about the opportunity as I see it. I cast vision. That's mostly what I do. I cast vision for our version of franchising and our version of home service. But what I have found is that I probably don't get as many leads as other franchises would want. And to Nick, too bad he's not on here. I give him credit for this. He would say, well, you don't want leads, you want qualified candidates.
What else would a marketing person say?
Right,
No.
exactly. But there's
Like,
truth in
you
that.
don't even need to focus on sales. No.
There's truth in that because
You're right.
I don't get a ton of leads. I don't get phone calls where I have to talk somebody into this thing. The only thing I need to do is make sure they have a clear understanding and are ready. That's really like, it's more of readiness. We're having readiness conversations. And usually in the first phone call, the ones that aren't a good fit, like I said, I'm not selling. They just will like send me back a really nice message that says, hey, Ty, you're really great to talk to, but this isn't a good fit for me. So I'm never in the process of like trying to sell anything. It's just not something I found myself in.
Which I love you using the phrase readiness conversations. And the other thing, like I guess every business owner does to a certain extent, which is obsess over the communication you're not receiving. I think too many franchise brands are not paying it. They should be more aware of, like, as Nick would say, but not the leads, but the conversions. But beyond that, like, how many great qualified candidates are looking at your brand, or even great franchise brokers, and then they get distracted because there's nothing to immerse in telling that genuine story, right? So frustrated when I see the generics on the websites, because it's a signal to me too that the franchisor, especially the new ones, they're not ready to have the conversation with the brokers or the candidates. And if you're just talking about being part of a $50 billion industry. But Michelle, how do you guys look at in terms of, like, how do you evaluate for your KPIs, what's important to you, leads, conversions? How do you view the discovery process?
Well, obviously leads turn into conversions. You want to be able to have access to the broker networks and you just networking in general. But it is important. I mean, you will get the tire kickers, and you have to keep remembering your story. Nick always reminds us, people, yes, they can look at however many franchises in this world right now, but the story somehow resonated with them. And you have to remember that. And it goes back to, like you said, the grassroots of why you started doing this franchise and why you think that, the validation will be there with your franchise owners, and the KPIs for that is there. But the reason why people join and the reason why people are excited is because they love the idea of your story. And whether you're the founder or whether you're just an executive that has been there forever, they love the story. You are what made them feel comfortable to move to the next step. And so, part of that is about that due diligence and that education. We approach it very much when we're awarding franchises is, it's not I'm not a used car salesman. I'm not, awarding a franchise to someone with a checkbook and a heartbeat. It is, you have to be right. It has to be right for them and their family. They have to make sure that they understand what they're getting into, that owning your own business is harder than your 9-to-5 corporate job sometimes. And so I'm very transparent with them, and that discovery process is very important. And as you said, communication, they have to feel comfortable with that person, whether it's you or it's whoever's on your team, but it is very important. So sorry if I rambled.
No, Michelle, that's so. When you see brands going wrong I mean, we all know, right? You want to onboard qualified candidates, validation, success, and that's critical. But when you see other brands or you look at them, where do you see some of them going wrong, or at least in your mind, you'd approach the process very differently? I'm not saying specific brands, but things that they're doing in terms of qualification or converting.
I don't like the idea of third-party qualifiers per se. I get it. Sometimes you have to, if you're a starting brand and you just need, you can't hire yet, but I like having a close-knit team. So if you are using third party, then make sure that they know your brand and they know, what your values are and what you're looking for. So it really is about understanding the people that are awarding and the people that are presenting your brand. They have to be in it. They have to understand it, and they got to be proud of it, and the passion is there. And so with my team, I'm lucky because Hannah, she's not only our awesome franchise coordinator, but she's what we call our CFO, our chief fun officer. She's really passionate about, she's been there almost 10 years. This is her 10-year anniversary, and she's passionate about what she's selling per se. And so I love that idea of having a great team together.
Yeah, it's funny that you bring that up. I see it with the emerging and startup brands so much that, they'll go hire a company and they'll be like, okay, when we speak with new franchisors, it's like, hey, you need to be ready for a 5-year journey. And the first 3 years are building a foundation, where some clients come to us for a reboot and they're like, I hired a company and they're doing the marketing and they're doing the qualification. And I'm like, but who's talking to these candidates? It's someone that barely knows the brand. Right. And Michelle, also, I think for franchisors, what better way? I mean, to the extent that failure is great, what better way than experience it firsthand and hear what the candidates, what they're concerned about, what they're asking about, where their resistance is, and where maybe your brand is failing in terms of can't serving their needs.
Exactly. And we incorporate during the discovery process time to talk to our operations person, our CEO, or their franchise support person. I mean, we do incorporate certain times for them so that they know what they're getting into. I mean, it's one of the frustrating things, and this is just my past life of being in franchising for years, is just, hey, I reached out to my franchise, my business consultant or whoever, whatever you call them, FSMs or FCMs or whatever, and I haven't heard from them in 3 weeks. Well, then no one's going to want to get involved in your brand because they're not going to get the support that they need. So make sure that whatever you're telling your prospective franchise owners, that you can back that up with, with validation with your franchisees. And so that's important.
Yeah. I think having the operations call is critical, right? Because I think so much opportunity, because everyone wants to know, can I do it and how you help me, right? And I think that's overlooked too often.
Right.
So guys, as we get ready for Dallas, I think it's March 2 to 3. So if anyone's out there, check out the 1851 FranCamp site. And we got a bunch of things coming up. But the good part about FranCamp, there's going to be some great panels. Dan's going to be talking about his podcast in the closet. Dan will be coming out of the closet soon.
I hope so.
But we're going to have some great panels, right? In terms of acceleration, getting unstuck, franchise sales process. And, guys, I really appreciate it, because this is becoming a learning adventure for me more than I ever expected. So looking forward to Dallas together.
Well, Charles, we're excited to be there.
So excited.
Yeah. And then it's like I tell bad jokes and then I just feel awkward the rest of the night. But guys, I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a lot of fun.
We expect your bad jokes.
Guys, have a great day.
Yeah, we'll see you
Thanks so
soon.
much. Look forward to it, Dan Ty. See you soon.
Later, y'all.
All righty. See you guys.
Bye, guys.